identifiable victim. We would call them the impacted party in our context. And our victim liaison would reach out to that impacted party to explain our process, to see how and if they want to be involved. They have a number of choices in that way, and one of those choices is not being involved in any way. But we want to give that choice to that impacted party to see how the crime has impacted them and how and if they want to be involved. We would also obviously reach out to the responsible party or the offender in criminal justice language and schedule an intake for them to come in to talk about the crime itself and what was happening surrounding the crime, what has happened in their lives since then, where they are now, and describe a little bit more about our process so that they know what they're getting into. One of the key things that we would check for is that the responsible party is taking responsibility for the crime. If that is not in place, it's probably not an appropriate referral to the Community Justice Center, and we can kick it back to the State's Attorney's Office. However, if that person is willing to take responsibility and is amenable to the process, then the next step would be meeting in what we call a panel, and that is meeting with 3 to 5 community volunteers, plus our victim liaison and the impacted party, and to talk about what happened, who was harmed in that crime, what obligations does that create, how are we going to repair that harm.
The felonious vandalism of the mural, I believe, was an action that would warrant a more serious law enforcement response than the restorative justice. And I would have liked to see maybe a payment of a fine or something that would send a message that we think this is quite serious and maybe a little more of a deterrent effect.
I think the way that restorative justice works is that it's pragmatic. It's trying to make a difference. So I think in the process, people have said, "Oh, he should be in jail," and all of this stuff. People are used to a more punitive type of justice, but that just doesn't work. You can pick your study or you can just use common sense. People are not healthy and happy after interactions with our justice system.
One of the misnomers about restorative justice or alternative justice is that it's soft on crime, or that it actually is maybe a slap on the wrist for the perpetrator, and it's not true justice. What we find with alternative justice and with restorative justice is this is actually a deeper form of accountability than the typical criminal justice system often provides. So restorative justice actually offers quite an in-depth and deep way of taking accountability, and so that responsible party talks about the new way that they are reflecting on that crime and maybe a new way of going forward.
Restorative justice, in my experience, was so many conversations and difficult conversations. At one point we had to use a talking stick or talking stone just so everyone could keep themselves in check with responding to each other in an appropriate way. There are no quick fixes, but I think what restorative justice focuses on is expanding human relationships and understanding, trying to have people see perspectives, and maybe further down the line, not right away, but maybe in a few months or even years, those conversations and being exposed to people of different backgrounds and beliefs will be really helpful.
The restorative justice has certainly some significant benefits, and I'm glad that is there. But restorative justice does allow the people who are harmed by an act to express that harm, and to have the individual committed the act have to kind of deal with that. And that can also be very difficult and could potentially result in some, we hope, reflection, some real self-examination, and some determination to change and not repeat that act.
I think restorative justice offers tremendous opportunities for communities to benefit and to heal in a variety of ways. So I think repair is key to any restorative process, and as well as transformation is a potential. It's not necessarily a goal at the beginning, but it certainly is a possibility for a community.
I don't know how well they work with everything else, but the idea of restorative justice makes a lot of sense. the courts are crowded, the jails are crowded. That's not necessarily the proper response to every, quote, criminal act. But if you can stop somebody in the bud, make them understand what they're doing is wrong, have them change their ways without doing this, then great. It's a good idea.
Restorative justice, for me, clarified a lot of my feelings. It was a good chance to be challenged and exposed. I think it really made me realize the depths of the ideological divide. You know, people's minds are not getting changed very easily at all. And, you know, and they don't necessarily get changed by this sort of action. I definitely personally grew through restorative justice, maybe not in exactly the ways people would think. I definitely have the same beliefs and feelings as I did before, and I haven't had any sort of radical awakenings. It's more just that I don't think the criminal justice system as it stands does anything other than abuse and oppress people. So
the phrase restorative justice is a contemporary term. It certainly resonates with our community because we do believe in justice and we do believe that everybody has to take responsibility for their actions. But in Jewish language, we have a slightly different framing for it, and that is the concept of teshuvah, which is repentance. In Judaism, if you have wronged someone, you cannot seek repentance with God. You have to first go to the individual or the group that you have wronged and seek their forgiveness. But that concept of restorative justice that tries to capture that in an American language gives us a broader way to do it together as Americans.